Hello and welcome to another episode of Back to Britpop. It's me, Chris. I think we're coming up to the end of season 3. It's been an amazing season so far. I've got to speak to so many great people, but the well is running dry, and my success rate of reaching out to 90s Britpop indie musicians and band people is starting to come to a bit of an end. The success rate is low, so it's looking like there's only potentially a few more episodes left, or I might have to start doing it slightly more sporadically. Hope you all understand, but it is getting very tricky. Nonetheless, I've got a great episode for you today. On this episode, I'm delighted to be joined by Daniel Laidler of the band Tiger. Daniel, by his own admission, does not enjoy giving interviews or speaking about the band at all, so it was a great honour for him to come on the show to speak to me. We talk about his musical influences as per normal, and we talk about the band, how it evolved over the years, and all his experiences with being in it. It's a really good chat. We had some awful technical issues to start with, and Daniel saved the day, basically saved the podcast by sending over a recorded file that he managed to obtain from his laptop, and pretty much saved the whole process. But it was a great chat. I'll be back at the end of the podcast to talk about all the ways that you can support it. But in the meantime, here's Daniel. Welcome to the podcast, Daniel Laidler. How are you?
Oh, very well, thanks.
Whereabouts are you?
I'm in East Sussex.
The podcast is about reconnecting with the music that I was into in the 90s, and bands from across all the kind of different genres as well, from not just Britpop but indie guitar music. And one thing that really fascinated me about Tiger, was just how elusive you seemed to me, and how just different to what was going on at the same time. Before we get on to Tiger, I just wanted to ask a little bit about how you got into music as well, in the early years, and your musical influences. And can you remember what kind of started you thinking about getting to music?
Well, I never really saw myself as a music sort of person. I was always, in my teens, I was always into old 60s music, and not really modern stuff. And I had friends in sort of school bands, and I dabbled a bit in that, and then just didn't really see that was my thing. I wasn't really a sort of band person. And then later on I started writing songs, and I realised that I did have some potential.
What do you think was the catalyst for that writing then? Was there any particular frontman or lyricist that you were into? Just
kind of standard 60s stuff, the Kinks, Ray Davies, and also liked Procol Harum. Not that they weren't really they didn't really inspire me. I can't really think who particularly inspired me. It was just I liked the idea of being in a band. I thought it'd be like such a good job, but as I say, it was only when it took me a long time to actually realise that maybe it was something I could do, that I was worthy of doing.
And so those early sort of forays into songwriting, what kind of stuff were you writing about?
Well, what happened was a friend left a electric guitar around at my house, and one night I started sort of fiddling with it, and worked out that if I plugged it into my mum and dad's hi-fi and whacked up the recording level to maximum, and then tuned 3 strings to the same key, it made a brilliant sound. And along with my Yamaha, one of those Yamaha keyboard, it has all those drum patterns, and I ended up sort of writing all these songs, and these songs just sort of come out, and I thought, this is sounding very good. Well, other people thought so. That gave me the confidence, really.
And so when did you start sort of composing like songs from start to finish and thinking that maybe you would start to form a band?
But originally I didn't think I thought I'd write songs for other people, because I didn't think I was because being quite a sort of not particularly outgoing sort of person, I didn't think I'd make a very good front person, which is kind of true. But eventually I got so involved I ended up being the frontman in the band.
When you were looking for fellow musicians to join the band, what were you looking for?
Well, originally when I thought I'd start a band, I was imagining a kind of almost like a hippie rock band with blokes with long hair, and I imagined all these sort of funny props we'd have, and But then I met Julie Sims, and she was really keen on my sort of demo tapes, and she said, well, why don't we form a band? And she kind of got other people together, and it just sort of snowballed from there, really. And we ended up with Tiger, which wasn't what I expected. Don't think anyone expected, you know. Because Julie, I don't know if you remember a band called the Warm Jets.
Yeah.
And Julie's boyfriend was Louis from the Warm Jets. And they had a place where they rehearsed in Spitalfields. It was like an artist studio. And so they helped us a lot to sort of get going. So we got going very quickly with their help.
Yeah.
And the first gig we did was me, Julie, Louis, Ned from the Warm Jets. Oh, Dido. Dido started on that first gig. And by the second gig, we had almost the whole Tigers lineup.
Yeah.
So it's only, you know, it got going very quickly. And by the third gig, we were kind of signed to a record label.
Did you have a kind of an instant following then? Was there sort of a real buzz generated around you?
Didn't really feel that. I mean, it's obvious people liked it, and it was obvious that we had something. And you know, one minute you're sort of like a sort of crap band level, and the next minute you're sort of signed to a record label. I mean, I don't think there wasn't time for a following or anything really.
In terms of sort of that record company interest, you were kind of signed to Fierce Panda originally, weren't you, and then moved to Island?
No, originally signed to Trade 2, which was when Rough Trade went bust. Jeff Travis and Jeanette Lee started Trade 2, which was sort of affiliated with Island Records. For some reason, we wanted to do a single really quickly, and so Fierce Panda, our first single was released on Fierce Panda, Shining in the Wood. I'm not really sure why, but I don't know. It was to do a single quickly, because I think maybe it took a long time to get cleared through Island. I don't know. I was particularly clueless about what was going on, very naive. Julie pretended to sort of know what was going on and sort of take control, and she did very well. Yeah, I mean, I think I was sort of wary of things, but yeah, I mean, you don't know what's going to happen next, really. I don't know. I mean, also we were put in situations where we were doing gigs at weird places, and you know, you get quite a lot of hostility, and it's not like everyone loves you or anything. Quite the opposite, really. You get, and also, you know, in the press, it's not sort of, necessarily, you know, positive, especially with a band like us, I think.
All the sort of music that was happening at the time, all the other bands that were, you know, the Britpop era especially, and just other indie, did you see yourself as a band that was deliberately going against the tide in that respect, and wanted to do something completely different?
Not musically, because I mean, I was just doing what came out, and I don't think, and because the band was made up of a lot of previously non-musicians, well, I don't know how to phrase that. We just did what we did. So, but I was very anti-fashions and conventions with fashion and things like that. So that's one thing I did purposely choose to go against the current fashions of the time. Yeah, you
definitely stood out, and it was a conscious decision to look, you know, buck the trend essentially, which was that kind of almost contrived look that was going on. You guys just looked completely different, and you say that was something that was deliberate.
The clothes and things were deliberate, because it was like I didn't want anything to do with. I hated fashion. I still am not very keen on it, and the convention of fashion and the values of fashion, and that was one thing I was quite sort of adamant about. But the music, why that might have been different, wasn't that we were purposely trying to sound different. It was that, you know, none of the band members, apart from the drummer, had played anything before being in Tiger, so they weren't particularly bandy type people, so it was naturally going to be a bit different, if you see what I mean.
And so the music press, you touched on it earlier on, but did you have a initially quite a good response with the music press in the UK?
I think the NME we did. I think the Melody Maker not so much. I think they didn't really like us very much. But I can understand that. I mean, I think some people thought, like you're saying about the way we looked and everything. I think that rubbed people up the wrong way, and I can understand. It probably did, but I don't think that was justified if they knew the real reasons why we did it. We had a lot of people that were very sort of keen on us, and a lot of people who were very anti. So, you can't really tell where it's coming from.
The thing with Tiger is that you kind of are quite infamous in a way. I think lots of like polls of bands from the 90s or forgotten great indie bands, Tiger always appear. And is it odd looking back at that now and thinking that you have this kind of respect among musicians and sort of the music journalists now?
Yeah, it is actually. Yeah. Well, I don't know. I mean, no, I can't answer that.
Is it too much just to sort of admit that maybe you did create something, pretty unique? Or is it just because it is quite a special sound?
Yeah, I can see it in some things. I can see, some of our songs I think were pretty good, and others can make me cringe a bit. But yeah, I mean, if you compare it with other things, it stands its ground, So
yeah.
I think we did do some original stuff, and I think originality was always something I thought was like the thing you should strive for, really. And I think we achieved that.
And the sort of dual vocal that you had going on with Julie, would have been something that would have been paramount from the very beginning?
No, but it wasn't deliberate, really. I mean, it just happened. Everything sort of just sort of fell into place, and people did what they did, and if it sounded right, then we just sort of went with it. Often, we made a lot of mistakes, but that's kind of what it was. Quite sort of organic.
That situation, being put in a recording studio, was it quite different? Obviously, you've been recording demos at home and stuff, but what were those early recording sessions like?
Well, the first demos we did with the Warm Jets, who had their little recording studio, and they helped us do our first demos. Then we did a lot of demos at the EMI publishing demo studios. So we actually had quite a lot of experience by the time we recorded the album. They were never, it just sort of seemed to flow, really. I mean, we never sort of had to stop and think, what we're doing, Darren Escriet, who produced the first album, he was sort of junior engineer at the EMI publishing studios, and we just sort of kind of got on so well with him, we thought we'd just have him as a producer, which worked really well. And for the second album we did with Stephen Street, who obviously he was a famous, successful producer, but it wasn't a lot different, really. No. He just let us get on with it. Obviously it wasn't quite like that, but yeah, well, he was great.
Were you struggling at any point to keep writing material?
I didn't get too stressed with that. I mean, you got a lot of stuff about, we want another hit and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, hits. You don't think, I think I won't write a B-side today. I'll write a hit. It just sort of comes when it comes, really. I mean, obviously you can work hard at it, and I don't think I particularly worked hard at it. I didn't think that was something you were supposed to do, really, with music. Just work at it. But I just sort of plodded along with it, and songs would come out when they came out. And, you can kind of tell when something's going to be popular, but you can't force it.
Was it a collective effort for you then as a band? Did everyone contribute to the writing?
Well, what happened was I would come up with an idea, and I would record it on my little 4-track or whatever it was, and then that'd be presented to the rest of them, and then they would sort of build things around that.
Yeah.
And we'd work together and make a complete song. Yeah, I mean, when we did the last album, some songs weren't that well finished, and Stephen Street sort of had bits, and he had a quite nice bass line to one of them. Generally, though, before we'd go to a recording studio, they'd be all formed. We'd have run through them with the band and worked out all the parts.
And so, in terms of your lyrical style and the writing or subject matter for the songs, what was kind of inspiring you to sort of write that content?
Well, when we first did gigs, our first 3 or 4 gigs, we didn't have any lyrics. Well, I didn't have any lyrics for the songs, and I would just pretend I did. So we'd do gigs, and I'd just sort of make these things that sounded like words, and often they would turn into. I'd have to sit down and write them into actual words before we recorded them. But initially they were kind of about my life in Buckinghamshire and just nonsense. But the idea was sort of like just to give a feel of something. That's my idea anyway, that if you stuck all the words together they would create a feel of something, and that would work, but it didn't necessarily work.
And did that sort of writing style follow you all the way through the 3 albums?
Not really. Well, it kind of got a bit more forced, I think. I don't know, it's difficult. I find lyrics very difficult, and I still do. I'm trying to write the lyrics. I've written a song recently, and it's all there apart from the lyrics. And I'm keen to get it finished, but I can't think of any words to go with it.
It's like the same as writer's block for an author, isn't it? I'm guessing.
Yeah, but the thing is, authors start off as writers. I start off writing a song not without lyrics. Especially like this song I've got at the moment. It's got the way the fake lyrics go. It's quite sort of got particularly punchy bits, and I want to find the words that actually go with those bits. And it's impossible. I've been waking up for weeks. Well, on and off.
With the band though itself coming to an end, what were the decisions to stop working together?
We were doing support for Pulp. Pulp's a UK tour. Originally it was Pulp, Eels, and us, and Eels dropped out, so it was just us and Pulp. The last gig was in Bournemouth, and it was like a really nice atmosphere. I think like it was near Christmas, and I just thought, if you go around a band now, might as well be now. Everything was looking a bit sort of negative at the time. We weren't sort of getting on that well, and it just everything didn't feel like it could carry on. So I thought it'd be best to sort of finish it there and then, and at a nice time. So I said enough was enough.
And were the band surprised? Were the rest of the guys surprised at that, or?
I don't know, everyone went home. So. It was Christmas. No, I think everyone felt it because I don't know. It's funny because we'd just done a quite good Peel session, and we had the album coming out. I think there's this thing about in bands where you always focus on negatives, and it all feels like everything's. Oh, we had been dropped by Island Records. That was another thing. That was a bit of a negative. So I thought, it'd be best to finish there. Then the album would get released. But of course, I was that naive that I didn't realise that if the band split up, the album wasn't really going to get the promotion it should have had. So that was a bit of a...
What did you go on to do then, Dan, if you don't mind me asking, straight after?
Well, straight after, we still had some studio time with EMI Publishing. So I went with some other people, Donald and Gavin, who worked with Tiger. We recorded some songs we had. Recorded a few songs with Dido from Tiger and Ben Wallace from the Country Teasers. And then EMI Publishing stopped us from using the studios, and after that it kind of went a bit flat. But we recorded a few songs.
Would there ever be a reunion of Tiger, do you think?
No. No, it's not a very good idea. Other bands do that sort of thing, and it doesn't seem to work out that well. I still write songs, so I wouldn't mind performing songs, but I don't like the idea of being old and doing young person's songs. Doesn't seem right to me.
What would you say were your most standout memories and from the band and being in the band, or either touring or recording?
Yeah, most rock and roll moments. Because a lot of my festival experience were a bit disappointing. Just they didn't really have the atmosphere. I was a bit disappointed about that. I remember Alan McGee, from Creation, pushing me up against the wall. Going, you've got it. And I thought at the time, this is proper rock and roll, experience. I loved that. I mean, there were parties and things, but I don't know. I mean, the best thing about being in a band is recording a great song and having it released. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that. I was never that keen on doing gigs because I never enjoyed it. It's too scary, and I couldn't relax. So I really think that was a wasted opportunity, because now if I did it, I wouldn't be so sort of self-conscious. So yeah, I think it's a bit of a wasted opportunity, that really.
You were championed by John Peel as well. That would have been quite exciting. Was he a big influence in what you were listening to?
No. Really. I did used to listen to his show when I was a teenager, a bit, when I was doing my homework. No, because I just used to sort of 60s songs and prog rock and things when I was young. Yeah, but I was really excited about doing a Peel session though. Really, because we did two, but both times we never even saw Peely, and that was a bit disappointing. Never got to meet him.
How did that work then? Did you just get him? Did you get like delivered some sort of golden envelope or something? How did that come about?
It's a bit, well, might as well be, yeah. Well, you just turn up at the Maida Vale Studios. Well, this, obviously going back 25 years. Turn up at the Maida Vale Studios, and you go into a studio, and there's technicians, and you record the songs, so kind of live. Yeah, you just kind of one go recording the songs. Then later on in the evening, Peely plays it. So he doesn't come down and say hello, which is...
You'd think he'd be like hovering over in some sort of weird wizardy way, wouldn't you?
I know. I thought he'd be interested in what we do. Well, obviously he was, but didn't want to actually see what sort of guitars we had or anything. You get to the point where you sort of take it for granted that you're doing another Peel session. It's funny. And then afterwards, if you 10 years later or whatever, you think, oh, hang on a minute, that was quite good.
Dan, I was going to ask you as well, would there be any sort of particular track that you're most particularly proud of?
One of mine?
Yes.
There are a few. I like Friends on the second album, and Race I'm obviously proud of because that was our biggest sort of seller. It's not my favourite song. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, lots of them. Yeah, and Shining in the Wood, that seemed quite popular. It's quite, it's a bit punky, really, I think, isn't it? Yeah, I don't know where that vocal came from, the vocal style. Sort of developed when I was playing the three-string guitar through the tape deck. And I don't know, the songs just sort of evolved like that. And as I say, there wasn't anything I was aiming for, just to make something that I thought sounded good. The band moulded them into songs, and that's how they ended up.
Would there be any other plans, do you think, to go back and revisit the material, maybe for like a reissue or anything in the future? Because it seems to be a lot of bands seem to be doing that these days.
I don't know. We're not even on what's it called, Spotify or anything.
Yeah, it's very hard to get your music. So I was trying to, in preparation for doing stuff, thinking I've got a cassette somewhere, and I think I found a cassette and a CD or one of the singles or something, and then this is what spurred the podcast on, going through my old sort of cover mounted discs and tapes and everything that I had in the garage, and thinking, I wonder what these bands are doing now. But in terms of getting copies of your material now, it's really hard, isn't it?
Yeah, I think you have to buy a CD on eBay or something. But
yeah, is that something you would maybe look at in the future, of maybe doing a remaster or anything, or could I persuade you for that, or is that something?
I'll be up for anything like that. I don't know. I mean, I'd be quite pleased if it got on Spotify.
So do you still own the music, or is it still owned by the record labels now, publishing wise?
Yeah, I'm not sure about that.
Because that's the biggest issue, isn't it? I guess is finding out who owns the masters and stuff.
Yeah, that I don't know.
Well, we'll start an internet campaign.
That'd be good. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I mean, I've had a lot when, you know, obviously being in Tiger, you get a bit tired of Tiger, so, and also, you know the ins and outs of it, so maybe, you know, I've had enough.
Well, you never know. We'll see what happens. I'll put the feelers out.
Yeah. Well, I think, you know, I've had emails and things from people, and they say, I can't get, you know, where is it? Why isn't it on this, and why isn't it on that? And, so obviously there's a demand for it, but I don't feel I've had the power to sort it out.
Dan, I'll let you go. Thank you so much for talking to me this evening about Tiger and everything else. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I did warn you. I'm not very good at interviewing. I mean, that was part of the trouble in the old days. You know, when we used to do interviews with the press and things, I'd just sit there and think, I've got nothing interesting to say. You know, and
you've
Julie
already done the hard work. You've done the hard work by writing the stuff. Sometimes.
Well, that's what I thought, actually. Yeah. You know, I thought, well, what more do you want?
Cheers, Dan.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
So that was Daniel of Tiger. Listening back to Tiger's music all these years later, it just really hits home how great they were. So different to my ears then and now. And a shame that you just can't get your hands on it or stream it, as we were talking about in the interview. Hopefully in the future that's something that will change. I must say thanks again to Daniel for saving the episode as well and sending me that file. He was a lifesaver, because we had some awful issues to start with that seem to be coming from my end, not his, by the way. So this is the boring bit. If you're still with me, there's loads of ways you can support this podcast, and the first one is following me on social media. So you can search for Back to Britpop on Instagram, Twitter and Facebook, and I'll be there. If you want to say thank you and buy me a coffee, you can do that as well. Those little donations really help just run this podcast and get it released onto the streaming platforms. So there's a Ko-fi or Ko-fi donation page, and the link to that is in the show notes. And if you're one of those people that haven't rated or written a short review for this podcast, you would be doing me a great favour if you could just press that little button and do that for me, because it really helps. Thank you for listening, and sorry for waffling and doing the whole begging ritual thing every week. I know it's boring. Hopefully I'll be back in the next couple of weeks with another episode. Who knows? If things come together, then it will happen. If they don't, you may have to wait a little bit longer. But thank you for your patience, and thank you for your support. See you soon.